Welcome everyone. The webinar will begin shortly and will be recorded. Connect with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading on social media. On Facebook, like the page Campaign for GLR, and on Twitter, follow the account @ReadingByThird. Please use hashtag LearningTuesdays and tag us to tweet anything you learn from today's webinar, and we'll be sure to retweet. We encourage you to share your questions, reflections, and observations on social media. Once again, we would love to connect. So on Facebook, like the page Campaign for GLR, and on Twitter, follow the account @ReadingByThird. Okay, welcome again, everyone, to today's webinar. My name is Sierra Sanchez, and I'll be behind the scenes helping to produce this conversation. I have just a few housekeeping details before we get started. First, we would love for you to introduce yourself, so please use the chat box at the bottom of the screen to share your name, city or state, and your organization. Be sure when responding to select both panelists and attendees so that we all know who is here. All attendees are in listen-only mode, but we encourage you to post any questions that you may have during the conversation into the Q&A box. The webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be emailed on Friday to all who registered. And all resources that you see shared as links in the chat will be compiled and shared in the same follow-up email as well. Finally, we'll be posting a brief on-screen evaluation during closing and highly encourage you to respond. This helps us with our commitment to continuous improvement. Lastly, before we begin, I would like to call your attention to our upcoming GLR Learning Tuesdays webinars. Next week on March 15th, we have an exciting doubleheader, starting with a funder-only conversation on philanthropy's role in improving teacher training, and a follow-on session at 3 p.m. on states on community schools. Additionally, on Wednesday, March 16th, we invite you to join us for our Housing is a Platform webinar, focused on the power of public housing and public school partnerships with a spotlight on Boston. The following week, March 22nd, we have Moving Towards Relationship-Centered Schools. Registration and more information for these sessions will be posted in the chat box now, and we hope you can join us. Joining you now is Emily Samos, Senior Consultant with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. Thank you and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Sierra, and welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining us for today's GLR Learning Tuesdays webinar, How Education Decision Makers are Maximizing Summer to Accelerate Learning Recovery. And so recognizing that COVID-19 school disruptions produce an extremely urgent need to maximize the summer months for learning recovery and acceleration, a large portion of federal recovery dollars has been designated for summer learning. State education agencies are determining how to make use of $1.22 billion set aside for summer enrichment, plus $6.1 billion for learning recovery, which can also include summer learning. And so with all of these funds available now, it's important to explore how decisions are being made to plan for summer 2022, and also, more importantly, to sustain summer learning programs for years to come, knowing that recovery is going to take much more than just one summer. So today we have the chance to learn from an incredible panel who can share firsthand experience with state-level decisions to prioritize and invest in summer learning, and how state education leaders are making moves now to maximize the impact that can be made when schools close again in June. We have the opportunity to learn about a new partnership between the National Summer Learning Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers called the State Summer Learning Network that aims to inform state-level efforts to expand summer learning programs to address pandemic-precipitated learning loss. In addition, leaders from Arizona and Texas, two states at the forefront of prioritizing summer learning, will share what a major state investment in summer learning looks like on the ground in districts and communities across their states. We will learn how they ensure equitable access in urban, rural, and suburban communities, and how state-level investments translate into increased access for children living in communities hardest hit by the pandemic that have often been left behind in the past. And so we're also very honored to have Polly Singh of the Wallace Foundation leading this session as a moderator. As many of you know, the Wallace Foundation is a major champion for summer learning, providing up-to-date research and resources, including the all-important National Summer Learning Toolkit. Wallace is also supporting many of these statewide summer learning efforts with funding, training, and technical assistance. And so now I'm honored to welcome and introduce our moderator, Polly, along with our esteemed panelists for today's exchange of ideas. So Polly Singh joined the Wallace Foundation in 2002 and was named Senior Program Officer in November 2017. Singh oversees grants primarily in Wallace's Partnerships for Social Emotional Learning Initiative and other out-of-school time efforts. She also helps manage strongnonprofits.org, a Wallace website that shares best practices in financial management for after-school providers. Our presenters today are Kathleen Airhart. She has served, one of our presenters, Kathleen Airhart, who has served as the Council of Chief State School Officers since 2018. She is responsible for leading the work of recovery and improvement within the strategic plan to ensure each student benefits from college and career-ready expectations, including summer learning and enrichment. Kathleen was previously Deputy Commissioner at the Tennessee Department of Education. And we've got Aaron Dworkin, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the National Summer Learning Association. Aaron thankfully has been with us for several GLR Learning Tuesdays webinars, and we're happy to have him here again. He oversees NSLA's support to their network of 15,000 program partners and leaders in the areas of program quality, partnerships, policy, public awareness, and leadership development. And prior to NSLA, Aaron served as president of the After School All-Stars National Network. And our discussants and commentators today include Melissa Castillo, who serves as Arizona's educators and students, who serves Arizona's educators and students as the Associate Superintendent of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at the Arizona Department of Education. Her career includes being a teacher in dual language and bilingual programs, an instructional coach, and professional development coordinator, among many other roles. We also have Dawn Fitzhugh from Arizona. She serves as the Arizona Department of Education as a summer learning coordinator. Her previous experience includes teaching at the Title I elementary schools for grades K through 5, supporting future educators in the Ed Rising program at Rio Salado College, and overseeing 21st Century Community Learning Center programs for the Arizona Department of Education. And last but not least, we have Brian Doran, who is the Director of Expanded Learning Models at the Texas Education Agency, working to support districts in accelerating learning through additional time and use of high quality curriculum and instruction. Brian began his career as a teacher in Miami, Florida, and in rural Japan before moving to school and district operations at KIPP Austin Public Schools. So welcome to all of you. I'm so excited for this conversation. We have so much to learn for you, and now I'm very excited to turn it over to Polly to get our conversation going with these esteemed panelists.
Thank you so much, Emily, for that warm introduction. That was fantastic. And before I even begin, I just want to thank the Campaign for Grade Level Reading for hosting this webinar and for gathering such a great group of panelists for today's conversation. Like Emily stated, my name is Polly Singh. I'm a Senior Program Officer at Wallace. I'm also a former summer learning program participant. I grew up in the South Bronx and went to public school. And on Saturdays and during the summers, I went to the Philston Enrichment Program in the Bronx. So shout out if you're from the Bronx, from New York, which is my home base. And all throughout my middle school years, that was the program I went to during the summer. So this work is just so near and dear to my heart. And that's why I worked at Wallace in this space for 20 years. And I'm so privileged to also be on this panel with so many other panelists who are passionate about summer and the summer space. I also wanted to share a little bit about Wallace and our background. We are a national foundation that works in 3 focus areas: the arts, education leadership, and learning and enrichment, which includes summer learning, after school, out of school time, social emotional learning. Our mission is to foster equity and improvements in learning and enrichment for young people and in the arts for everyone. Our goal is to generate dual benefits. One of them is to work locally with our grantee partners and those who serve through active grants, and for the broader field by learning as much as we can about what our local grantees do and what works. We develop and share learnings as credible knowledge and findings with practitioners and policymakers. It is our hope that they can find some of this to be useful to make improvements. We started working in the summer space more than a decade ago because we realize that summer is a time of great opportunity, but also a time when inequities in academics, enrichment, health and safety and wellness can be even more pronounced for some children, especially those from lower income families. We launched the National Summer Learning Project in 2011. It included 5 cities and their community partners, looking for and at the effectiveness of voluntary summer learning programs that combined academics and enrichment. We learned quite a bit from that project. We learned things about the program length, the dosage, how to recruit students. We also collected many of these tools and tips and toolkits from our online, and it's all hosted free of charge on our Summer Learning Toolkit on our website. It brings together over 50 resources with evidence-based recommendations from the RAND Corporation, our research partner for the National Summer Learning Project. I won't go into all of the other projects. You'll see 2 major projects that we've been working on today's panel. Aaron Dworkin and Kathleen Airhart will talk about their partnership between the National Summer Learning Association and CCSSO, and how they've been working with state agencies to support their summer plans and summer planning. And you'll also hear from one of their participants in that effort from Arizona State. We'll also hear from the Texas Education Agency about their effort that they've started under their HB3 effort. And this was launched just as ESSER was coming, I think just as we were entering the pandemic, and ESSER happened subsequently a year later. So lots of lessons to share today. I hope that you were ready to nerd out with us and get ready for it and get ready for our conversation. Aaron, I want to welcome you first and start. If you could share a little bit, let's start with you. So most folks on the line may know about the State Summer Learning Network. Can you please tell us about the initiative's goal and design?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Polly, and thank you, Campaign for Grade Level Reading, and to all the other panelists. It's a real honor to be with you, and to everyone listening. I recognize a lot of the names of folks who've joined. So again, I'm Aaron Dworkin. I'm with NSLA. Hopefully some of you are familiar with us. But really here today to talk a little bit about the partnership we have with Kathleen and CCSSO, which is being supported in large part by Wallace as well. They've been an amazing leader and partner in this space, as you've heard, for many years. If you go to the next slide, I think we have a little bit of an overview. So this is what's been going, and it was interesting timing because we knew when COVID first hit, the issues of summer learning became real for everyone, no matter what time of year, because everybody was home with young people and everybody was struggling the way historically low-income families struggled, especially over the summer months. But now it was happening to everyone, regardless of income level, and everybody was seeing and feeling the pain that comes from families trying to work and figure out kids and technology issues and care issues and health issues and all these things. So we got started by saying, we know that there's a leadership opportunity and partnership opportunity for NSLA to work specifically with state education agencies. We didn't know that there would be all this additional funding that would come in and then turbocharge everyone's interest and focus on this. So it has literally been a sprint since COVID, but that's, I don't call it, there have been real negative effects of COVID, but maybe a silver lining around the partnership. So and I'll let Kathleen chime in, and you'll hear from Arizona, and Texas, by the way, also, was very prescient and got started and focused on summer learning as a major state priority, even prior to COVID and prior to additional federal funds. So very excited that Brian's here to learn from them. But basically, this was a 2-year partnership to create resources and opportunities to support all states, but with then an opportunity, all state education agencies, but then an opportunity to go deeper with coaches and specific meetings and creating teams. And we tried to do 8, and now it's 9 states that signed up, said we want to do more, and we want to bring more partners to the table, and we want a little more extra time and support to figure out what our statewide strategy could be. And you can see the states, and Arizona being one, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Oregon, Tennessee, Utah, Virginia. Now Alabama has recently signed on. And so there was this kind of macro universal assistance support. We've had just a series of webinars bringing on experts and researchers and resources that people could leverage and utilize and have conversations. And then we have this smaller group of states. And one of the reasons to have a smaller group of states is to have more examples and exemplars, and also different states have different needs and have different contexts. And so lifting up different models, because not every state would kind of see themselves in what happens in California or Texas necessarily, but there are regional differences, there are size differences, there's context differences. So that's where we are. It's been going on for this year. We're now in year 2, and people are figuring out ways to create new positions, create new strategies. We're moving into implementation. So maybe I'll stop there and let Kathleen share any other insights she wants to talk about the partnership.
Sure, thanks, and thanks, Polly. We do so appreciate the partnership, but thinking about how states have responded to this opportunity, my initial feeling and concern when we brought on this project is this is not necessarily state work, but as it's turned out, it is state work. And we started with several universal technical assistance webinars with NSLA partnership, and attracted those technical assistance webinars up to 43 states at any one time. So there was lots and lots of interest, and those have been going on and will continue to go on this spring and this summer, one coming up in April. In addition to that, as Aaron mentioned, we have 9 cohort states included in this network, and with them, we've held monthly technical assistance meetings. And we average 50 to 60 participants on those meetings with the state teams that have developed. So what we're seeing is a great response to this work and to this need.
Thank you so much. So Aaron, would you tell us how the State Summer Learning Network fits into the overall work of NSLA?
Sure, and I have a couple slides here that I'll try and kind of tie together with these points and go through quickly. If you go to the next slide here. So just to pull back a little bit here, NSLA has been around for almost 30 years, focusing on summer learning, as all of you may know, as you heard from Polly, is both a time that is one of the most unequal times in education for young people, but also one of the most entrepreneurial and innovative and opportunistic times, depending on how we utilize these months. One of the ways we like to just kind of describe some of the value and the reason and the high ROI of investing in these months is what we refer to as the 4 eyes of summer. So I won't read through each one, but just to know that every summer learning program not only helps young people improve their skills, but also helps the adults and the teachers working in the program. So it all doubles up as staff training. And there's a lot of programs, some programs that are on this call, who would tell you that, yes, we work and serve middle school students and help them with their reading or math, but we also are, training new teachers and recruiting new teachers into our workforce through the summer programs. The other I is for innovation. And I think this is something where the state education agencies have a real chance to lead and be, a real support. What are some new ideas out of this crisis that we want to try out? And before you scale them and roll them out district-wide and statewide, why don't we test them out in a few places? And summer learning programs have always been a place of innovation. And there's a lot of huge initiatives, gigantic schools, national nonprofits that have all started out as summer programs. The last 2 is about this idea, and this is a real place where we see the state leadership helping, is around interconnectedness and bringing all the different, sadly, we all know in education, it's so fragmented often, that we are very siloed. In the summer, everybody wants to work together, but once the school year starts, it's hard. And we like partnerships, but people are overwhelmed and busy. But in the summer, with time to plan and a little more flexibility around what you do, there's a chance to bring different partners together, sometimes unlikely allies in different ways. If you bring in the private sector and some other sports, who knows? But there's a lot of partnership building in a way that bring all the assets of a community and a state together. And that could, if it goes well, that carries on into the school year. So we could get more into that. And finally, impact, and we all measure impact on different ways, on a student level, school level, state level. One thing I would just say collectively, what's very exciting is that this challenge of making sure that every young person in America, regardless of background, income, zip code, should be able to participate in and benefit from a high quality summer learning experience. This is a very solvable challenge for our country. We have so many, we have great programs, we have great districts, we obviously have the students, and we know it works. And before, you could argue we might not have had the funding, but now we actually have the funding. So there's a way to kind of really do this and get us to like such a critical mass that this is just one of these challenges that we write off America's to-do list. That's my dream. We'll see if we get there, but this is all kind of pushing in that right direction. You can go to the next slide, but I'll let Kathleen add in here. Is it okay if I just kind of quickly just reference this slide here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say this, again, for a lot of folks, there are a lot of states who've been doing this for decades, and districts have been doing this work for decades. But there are some that this is new. And so, meeting different states where they are, that's, I think, one of the interesting pieces of our work with CCSSO. People have different levels of expertise and experience. But this idea of why we even use the term summer learning, and this is broad historical kind of distinctions. Historically, if you said you have to go to summer school, a young person would say, oh man, that's a punishment. That's not going to be too fun. It's even families, right? This is disengaging. Yeah, I'm only going to learn, it's going to be in the school building. All my friends won't be there. And it's going to be just an extension of the school year. And the idea is that like summer learning could kind of be a reimagining of what that experience looks like. And it doesn't have to be academic only, academics priority for sure, but social emotional learning, mental health support, health and enrichment, all that. Plus you can make it so fun that it's so engaging, so hands-on that everybody wants to come, and you can make it voluntary. People want to choose to come. And it doesn't only have to be remedial, not only what you missed, but it also can give you a chance to learn new things that maybe you can't even get to in the curriculum during the year, to be not only accelerated learning, but new opportunities. And also that students have a big say in what it looks like, and to make it feel a little different maybe than their experience in the school year. Like, frankly, what middle and upper middle class families are spending thousands of dollars on amazing opportunities for their kids without blinking and thinking. And if you don't have that money to spend on those programs, how can we come up with equally comparable positive experiences? And that's kind of what we're focused on. Kathleen, would you like to add?
No, go ahead, Polly.
All right. So I know that your work has focused on ensuring students, especially our youngest and most vulnerable students, how they can avoid the summer learning slide by engaging in fun learning activities during this time when schools are closed. Can you talk a little bit about what you know about pandemic precipitated learning loss and what can be learned from the many years of research on summer learning slide, and about what it takes to recover and get back on track?
Do you just want me to jump in, or Kathleen also? Or
Erin, if you could start us off, because we also have a question in our, I forgot who wrote it in our text in our box, but I did capture it, and it's related to our question, because the question came in from one of our viewers, and it says, how will these programs assist with social, emotional, and behavioral health needs of children and youth? So I think your answer will get to hopefully both of those questions. And
yeah, and again, yeah, so thank you for going to the next slide here. And look, this is serious. When COVID first hit, there were a lot of projected studies. What will the loss look like? And it's sad. Initially, go back to March 2020, the collective wisdom was that we were only going to be out of school for 3 months. So everybody said, well, who has research on what happens to young people when they're out of school for 3 months? Oh, the summer learning. And they also thought that everyone would go back to school after 3 months. And so the summer would be more important. And obviously it stretched over 2 years. But it has taken a big toll. And the sad part is that a lot of those projected studies have now been proven true. If you look at the research from McKinsey and NWEA, and maybe some of you and your organizations and states, so reading levels, dropped, especially for our lowest income students, a lot of communities of color. And then on the, when you look at also on the mental health, and people didn't have the opportunity to be supported in the same ways that they might often have access to in the school, and this took a lot of toll, and social media. So there's a lot of negative effects that we know that we're still going to be dealing with the repercussions. And so this focus on mental health, well-being. Now, one of the things that I think there's a lot of support, and our friends in the American Camp Association have a lot of data on this as well, is that all these summer learning programs, yes, they promote equity, and two, yes, they create opportunity. But a third piece that they all hang their hats on is that they build a sense of community, and they build a sense of caring. And that the secret sauce to a successful program is that everybody from all the staff and all the volunteers and the students have a sense that they're part of something bigger than themselves, and people care about each other. And after people have been isolated for so long, for a couple years in many places, and we know that these programs have a chance to kind of reacclimate people, get people more focused, feeling a sense of a community, sense of building relationships with their teachers that then will carry on more in a positive way going into the school year. That's a big piece. And a lot of programs are now working to make sure that they're doing even more in their programs around this. And one thing that everyone's aware of, and you'll hear this from others, is not everyone has to be great at everything. Students have multiple needs, that's fine, but it doesn't have to only be on the school district to find, to support them. Yes, everybody, we want to make sure they're academic and literacy and math skills. But if for whatever reasons, mental health and social emotional support is not exactly your total expertise, there are a lot of community groups and partners that do have that. And so you're seeing this braiding of resources and expertise, and people want to come in. And so the best programs are pulling in a lot of those folks, and everybody wants to help. Not everybody knows how. And I think a good summer program and the leaders, especially from the district, are able, and the states, are able to kind of take the best of what we have and bring them together for young people.
That's great. I do have another question for you, Erin, if you keep going, and then we'll shift to Kathleen. So we know that it takes a solid system of summer learning to make an impact. Tell us about NSLA systems building work and the support that supports communities in ensuring all children have access to summer learning opportunities. So I want you to talk specifically about the access, but the systems building work. And we also have a question in the chat about how community organizations can partner and support summer learning programs, especially in moving away from remediation and mandated programs.
Sure. And if you go to the next slide, I think we have a couple slides here. We go. So this is interesting. So I'll start here and we'll go to the next one, Polly, to answer your question. So first of all,
okay.
thanks to Wallace, Jennifer McCombs, RAND Corporation, a lot of research has been done for years because a lot of these programs have been dependent on government funding, and you have to learn what works, improve what works. And one of the big studies from the National Summer Learning Project that you were sharing before is like, all right, well, what works? So they looked at least these 5 big communities, and and meeting the highest level of rigor and of standards at the Department of Education. And we know that we need multiple weeks, preferably multiple years. The same students have these experiences, school-based, but it's the combination. And when I say school-based, I'd also say school-based and school-aligned. It doesn't have to be in the school building. Just that's something to know about. And in COVID, when it was safer to be outside, we saw a lot of innovative programs. But Boston public schools that was highlighted here, they have science certified teachers teaching courses in the summer at the aquarium and at the zoo. And students are using the entire city as a classroom. Now not every community has a city, all those assets, but everyone's got some to take advantage of. And if you kind of have an expanded view of what's possible. But to get to your point, so here's the one big research study. If you look at I didn't have it here, but the National Academies of Sciences right before COVID came out with a huge report that looked at every piece of literature and research on what works and what doesn't in summer learning, and has a lot of great examples. So I would direct people's attention to that. You could find that. You could put that in the chat. But if you go to the next slide on the community level, this is what we call our community indicators of effective summer learning systems. And this is something that, Wallace Foundation, Mott Foundation with the state after school networks, a group called Every Hour Counts that has huge citywide intermediaries. There's a lot of folks who are saying, all right, we have a lot of common challenges, a lot of common goals. How do we coordinate everyone's efforts? And so at a city level and a state level, especially, what is your vision? Are you getting all the players together? Do your leaders from the top to the bottom is not, really care and have a commitment? I think we're seeing that in all the states and partners we have here. What is your data collection system to not just to, hold ourselves accountable, but to learn and to improve? And here, I'll just put a plug here. It cannot be the case that with so many more billions of dollars into our system, that the same number of students are going to be served now than before COVID. We have to be able to grow our numbers, identify which students have these needs, and create more spots for young people and serve more young people. And we should hold ourselves accountable both on the quantity side and the quality side, but collecting that and aggregating that data is going to be a challenge and requires system levels leadership. And then this focus on quality improvement, a lot of training, shared trainings. We don't need 500 groups all running their own staff trainings on social emotional learning and best practices in tutoring. Yes, everyone's got their unique design, but you could combine, you can create some efficiencies here. And this is what the systems level, and we create reports. You see this picture of the Atlanta landscape report we do with a lot of communities where we identify where are the programs, where are the needs, where are the gaps, what are the hurdles. And from this report came and I give Katie Landis, who runs the Georgia State After School Network, a great leader, a lot of credit for leading the charge, working with United Way. They created a whole summer learning council. Then when the state funding became available for summer learning, they were in position to help distribute it and help, identify good partners. And then getting the word out. And by the way, if we're creating all these resources and programs and spots and families don't know about it and don't sign up, what a shame and what a loss that is. And we've seen that. And so we're working nationally with partners to kind of get the word out so families can find programs, and then working with all of you, and you'll make sure people closer to the ground are the ones who are going to ensure that the programs are as high quality as possible.
That's great. Oh, wow. Yeah, I think we also found Wallace our toolkit has recruitment advice. We found that to be a critical component when recruiting students, to make sure that you have enough information and you're kind of over communicating to recruit your students and get participation rates up. Kathleen, I'd like to shift to you now. I wanted to thank you so much, Aaron, but we also want to hear from Kathleen. And how have states responded to the opportunity to engage in the summer learning discussions?
Well, as I mentioned previously, Polly, very well. I mean, we were really excited on our first technical assistance webinar that we had nearly every state show up to that meeting, because there was a interest. And as Aaron had mentioned, that was even prior to any release of ESSER funds or ARP funds that were dedicated for that purpose. So there's been a ton of interest. Our non-cohort states have been committed to this work and attending and participating and receiving the coaching to really change what it looks like to participate in summer learning from a state level, which I mentioned also was somewhat a new experience for them.
Were there any common themes that emerged from the states as they began this work? And what are some opportunities or challenges that the state leaders face?
Sure. The common themes, as I think of it across the 9 cohort states, is there's really beginning to be shared language around summer learning, which is unique and new. Everybody understands, Aaron mentioned the document that allows organizations to assess the quality of their summer learning. States are beginning to use these with their LEAs and with their local organizations, looking at the impact of using high quality standards. And I think states are starting to shift assumptions about where learning takes place. It doesn't have to be in the school building, in the classroom. But what has been really exciting for me to watch has been this cross-agency, cross-community stakeholder teams that are developing among the states. Previously, from my experience at a state and from our early conversations with states, is states would come to the table with state members. And now states are coming to the table with organizations that provide summer learning across a wide variety of opportunity for students, and starting to link those resources together. So opportunities, certainly, a lot of national attention on summer learning going on right now. And as Erin mentioned, they're kind of the place that people are coming to say, hey, how do we do this? We're trying to figure this out. And understand that summer learning is not just playground and not just summer school credit recovery. And with that, it's sort of a reframing of what summer school used to be to a new summer learning and enrichment experience. Have to mention the federal dollars to expand access. I mean, that has been so important to so many communities and so many schools and local organizations to really be able to serve students that were underserved previously and might not have had those opportunities. And again, among our states, we see a lot of sharing of best practices, lots of conversation about how they're doing it in one state and then learning from each other. But there's challenges, as you mentioned. We look at supporting comprehensive summer learning systems across all these organizations and across LEAs from a state level is really new to states. So we're sort of learning together and creating a framework of how all states can step into this work. All states are suffering through staffing shortages, some more so than others. And this not only impacts schools and traditional learning, but also our summer experiences. And then a lot of our states are grappling with the sustainability issue. Right now, we're a little fused with money, are infused with money, but that will come to an end in a couple of years. So we're thinking about the long-term sustainability for this work.
Those are great examples, Kathleen. Can you share a little bit about how states are thinking about utilizing the ESSER ARP funds to support summer learning?
Sure. It's been really exciting because, within the COVID relief package, we see that states have to set aside a reserve from their ARP ESSER allocation, I think 5% to address learning loss. And that can be around evidence-based interventions, including summer learning, summer enrichment, extending the school day, comprehensive after-school programs, or even extending the school year. At least 1% of those funds need to be set aside for evidence-based summer enrichment programs. And again, NSLA is the expert means to have high quality summer enrichment programs. And then another area of set aside is 1% for evidence-based comprehensive after-school programs. So I often think of our work and our conversations with states as not just summer learning, but anything related to out-of-school learning, including after-school, weekends, in between breaks, et cetera.
That's great. How are they thinking about long-term sustainability? And Erin, feel free to chime in here if you have examples as well.
Yeah, we shared a funding guide with our states that was created specifically for this project, but it looks at, as we started this funding guide, it was looking at utilization of federal funds, local funds, state funds collectively to fund summer learning and enrichment. And then came along ESSER and ARP. So of course we infused that into the document, but it's thinking about how all of these funds can be used collectively. So spending the ESSER funds one time and the money goes away. And we're encouraging states as we're having conversations with them to start thinking about relegating this work of summer learning into the structure of the SEA. Because rather than having this something that we work on for the short term, we want it to become a natural conversation among SEA members built into state strategic plans and as they think about the long-term importance of this work. But we've got some really great state examples and I'll put a link in the chat as we finish up our session on how states are spending their SRARP funds. And I pulled up a few. We've got 5 or 6 states who have tutoring statewide investments. As many states, again, looking at accelerating learning, particularly around math and literacy, whole host of states looking around mental health and SEL needs. And then a bulk of our states are putting out competitive grants, not only to their LEAs, but to community-based organizations who can participate in this opportunity to provide sort of the opportunities for students across the state. But what else might you say about long-term sustainability, Aaron?
Yeah, thank you, Kathleen, for all of that, and Polly, for the question. I'd say this. There's a macro level and the micro level. The macro level is what we know is we're trying to move everyone away from thinking of summer learning as a short stopgap measure response, emergency response to COVID, but something that should be every young person should have the opportunity to grow up and have their summer months be full with positive, amazing experiences every year. And by the way, those experiences have to change depending on how old the student is and their interests and over time and their grade level. So, you know, summer youth employment is a form of summer learning for high school students. And now we're seeing those programs adding in academic pieces to it and all this. And now I know this call is more focused on folks interested in younger grades and supporting around, especially around reading. But, you know, there are a lot of programs where the high school students are working with the elementary school students. So those are kind of micro strategies about like, how do you sustain it over time, you know, from a staffing perspective. But what we want to do, and we always joke, it's not a joke, our actual guidebook that we have is called Summer Starts in September. So we just want summer to be just like anything else. It's not a silver bullet. It's not the only solution to anything, all the challenges we have, but it could be one piece of everybody's kind of pie. And we want it to be just built in. And it should always, not just during COVID, but always just be ongoing. And how do you get there? And when you say how to sustain it, yeah, right now there's this infusion of dollars, but I think what we know is that it's gonna be multi-sector, a multi-sector approach, multi-sector funding that kind of keeps it going. And so when we talk about all the folks we have in our network, it's school districts and state education agencies, but then it's a huge number of other what I call youth serving government agencies. So our library systems, you know, our libraries are doing so much moving from summer reading to summer learning. Our parks and rec departments, our public housing authorities, I talked about the summer youth employment, and then this huge world of nonprofit community-based organizations who are chomping at the bit and have expertise and want to work with the district. So if the districts feel a little tired and overwhelmed, which they're rightfully able to say and feel, they know that they have all these other partners who want to step in. And when you kind of pool all those resources and all that staffing and all that expertise and all those facilities, you could really keep this going for every kid in the country in a long-term way.
Thank you so much, Aaron and Kathleen, for those wonderful insights to really get like the lay of the land of what's happening nationally. I would like to shift now so that we can get some state level perspectives. I'm so excited to hear from these panelists. So I'm going to ask Dawn Fitzhugh and Melissa Castillo and Brian Doran to step on and join us right now. First, we'll start with Melissa and Dawn. How has the Arizona Department of Education elevated or prioritized summer learning? Can you share a little bit about your experience?
Sure. Good afternoon, Polly. I'm excited to share some of what Arizona is doing. And I have to say that I get to listen to Aaron quite often because we're part of the Summer Learning Network, him and Kathleen. And I'm even more excited every time I get to listen to what they have to say. And we're very privileged to be part of that network that is one of those states that's really learning from the research that's being presented to us and from some of what our other partners are doing out across the country. I think Aaron said something important, and that is that we've been really doing summer school for decades. I think that shift from summer school to summer learning has been a big one for us here in Arizona. It's interesting to note that our most vulnerable, disproportionately served students face some of the greatest inequities during summer, and we're really working hard to address that here. We have put a competitive grant process in place, and we have 3 major priority areas that need to be addressed in the proposals that are coming through to receive some of the ESSER dollars that we've been awarded here at the state. That includes learning loss or after school enrichment or summer learning. So we've really prioritized this as an area that we want our community-based partners as well as our LEAs to really prioritize, pay close attention to, and figure out how they can creatively make summer an opportunity to accelerate learning. We've also at the state level, to really exemplify that this is a priority for us, have created a position, which is our summer learning coordinator position. Dawn, who is on the panel with me, has graciously taken on that role. And I'm excited for her to share some of what's happening as well. We also have recently updated our strategic plan, our 5-year strategic plan at the agency, and our first priority area addresses student equity and achievement. And again, within our plan, we have really identified strategies and a focus on summer learning as an opportunity to accelerate learning and, to Erin's point, make it part of what we just think about all year long and not just when we're getting close to May and gearing up for those summer months. I also think something that we've done that has been really important is that we have taken some time to figure out what's happening across the agency in regards to summer learning. We know that as a result of the pandemic, it isn't the only reason why we are now expecting it to have a focal point, but that our program areas that oversee some of our other title programs and federal dollars have already been expected to think through summer, to support LEAs in planning and implementing evidence-based programs for summertime. I'm just not sure that they've always looked at it through the lens of summer learning, but more as an opportunity to ensure that kids are in spaces where they're safe, they have somewhere to go, and oftentimes have really prioritized remediation over acceleration. So really informing our program areas across the agency, having conversations about how we can help our LEAs better understand our missed opportunities during summer and how we now make sure that their opportunities, especially for our most vulnerable populations, to have experiences that they wouldn't otherwise experience, to have experiences that we know do directly impact reading and math and writing and science and social studies, all those wonderful areas that we need to be thinking about throughout the year, but in a way that doesn't feel punitive, right? In a way that doesn't feel like it's just more of the same, that in all reality, we've identified isn't necessarily moving them in the trajectory that we need to move them throughout the traditional school year. There is a lot of work still that needs to be done, but I do think our efforts are taking us in the right direction. I think with the support that we're receiving from CCSSO and NSLA is going to be hugely beneficial. And there's more to come when it comes to what we're doing. And I hope that maybe next year I'll have an even longer list of what to share with you in regards to what we're doing here in the state of Arizona at the Department of Education.
Great. So what do you hope and expect districts and charters to consider and plan for as part of their summer learning programs?
Well, my hope is that our districts and charters begin to see summer learning as an essential element to ensure access for all students to reach their full potential. I don't, again, in full transparency, I'm not sure that we've seen it as an essential element, but just as an opportunity to kind of close gaps with immediate results, but maybe not long-term or sustained results that have a really great impact on students' trajectory and their academic outcomes. I also hope they see it as an opportunity to deal with or to help our students when it comes to their social and emotional needs, their behavioral needs, And finally, I see summer learning now more than ever as an opportunity to elevate our teachers and their creativity and their autonomy and their agency, to allow them to make some decisions around summer learning that they know are most impactful for their students, to give them an opportunity to have a break from the same that happens through the traditional school year, to address some of their social and emotional needs as well. We know that our teachers are struggling. We know they have for the last couple of years for obvious reasons. We know that they're in desperate need of a break. And if we want them to be a critical component of summer learning, which we know they should be, then we have to ensure that they get to engage in spaces, in places, in a way that makes them happy, in a way that they know best meets the needs of their learners, in a way that we know advances student understanding, students' language development, students' experiences, and that they do so with evidence-based practices that have already proven to be effective and that they've been dying to use for a really long time.
Thank you so much. Dawn, do you want to add anything?
Yes, so I just wanted to kind of add to this shift that we're creating in Arizona. I previously was working with 21st CCLC, and in 2019, was able to attend the NSLA conference. And there I learned about the Wallace Foundation and the Summer Learning Toolkit, and made connections with Katie from the Learning Agenda, and to really start seeing what Arizona has and how we can reshape our summer learning opportunities for our 21st CCL grantees. And with that, we started providing PD and really helping our grantees to see this difference of summer school to summer learning and making that shift. And then we started a summer learning community of committee members to look at our application process that we have in with summer learning and our 21st CCLC grant. And through that, we had CBO partnerships like United Way and district leadership. And then we started to talk about our minimum requirements and how we were so far under what Rand's research was saying. And that has reshaped this year in creating longer weeks, longer days. And then when COVID-19 happened, we had that shift starting and that momentum going. And then in response to addressing the learning loss, districts and charters started offering longer hours, days, longer weeks, to increase the enrichment opportunities. And we're really investing in purchasing summer curriculum. Additionally, they started planning more family engagement opportunities during the summer months and really trying to lift up summer learning. And so I have a resource to share later on that addresses what Arizona is doing in regards to our summer learning journey and the shift that we're making to really focus intentionally on summer learning. And I think Emily will put that into the chat box if she hasn't done so.
Great, thank you so much. And we'll shift to Brian Doran from the Texas Education Agency. Thank you for for going last, but of course you have a great story too that I want our listeners to hear about. So I want to hear, how have you supported evidence-based summer programming in Texas?
Sure, thanks, Polly. So I think Erin alluded to or actually Polly, you alluded to this earlier on. We, in Texas in 2019, our legislature passed a bill called HB 3, which actually added some additional funding sources for districts to add up to 30 additional days to their school year for any elementary campuses in their district. And so we see there's a number of different models that folks could take in implementing this, but by and large, we're seeing districts and charters across the state implementing as a summer program. And when that first passed, we at TEA, we knew, we wanted to push in and support districts as much as we could in implementing a high quality program. More time is great. more time at high quality and using the evidence base is even better. And so fortunately, we were connected with the Wallace Foundation and really were able to lean on the RAND research and the evidence base and created what's called affectionately ADSEPEP, Additional Day School Year Planning and Execution Program. And so this really is a 1-year planning program coupled with 3 years of continuous improvement execution of summer programming, where in that strategic plan template, which they are working towards completing over the course of their planning year, we've built in, or we've attempted to build in the evidence base to the level that we're able to. And so every single piece that they're thinking through in that strategic planning process is directly correlated to key evidence base that points to strong summer programming. So that dosage requirement, things like the 25 days and a minimum of 3 hours of math and reading instruction each day, 3 hours of enrichment, just a number of different requirements that we built into that grant program. And really gearing people to, initially it was to be able to utilize this additional funding source at the state level while going through a robust planning process aligned to the research. And then really in the midst of our first year of planning for that, COVID hit. And so the scenario changed dramatically. Initially, this was just a summer slide, an approach to tackle summer slide. I say just an approach, that's a big thing in itself. But then when you add the context of COVID slide and the loss of opportunity for students across the state and country due to COVID and the pandemic, it really underscored a new need and allowed us to couple our ESSER dollars, our summer set aside, and expand the program a bit in addition to our additional funding sources through Wallace Foundation and some other partners. So this allowed us to expand our reach and has, you know, I think to Aaron's point, kind of trying to take advantage of the situation or seize the opportunity, I guess, of implementing higher fidelity use of the evidence base within summer programming across the state. And so we have a couple more cycles planned out for that planning and execution program, and are aiming to get more resources as we iterate on those resources through the planning and execution program, and get those out more broadly across the state. So folks who are not able to participate in that planning process are able to access and utilize those components as well. And a lot of those are really closely tied to the summer learning toolkit from the Wallace Foundation as well.
That's great. I'm glad you're putting the tools to good use. What are you doing to support high fidelity implementation of learning acceleration to the LEAs? Yeah,
definitely. So one of our approach for learning acceleration at TEA is three-pronged. One of those prongs is extra time. And so within extra time, that's where we treat, that's where we bucket summer learning. We have other components such as tutoring as well in that bucket. One of our other high priority approaches for accelerated learning is implementing high quality instructional materials. So making sure that the materials that are in front of students are grade level, that they are being utilized in a way that's accelerating learning, right? It's not, we don't want to focus too much on remediation. We want to make sure that students have access to grade level content, and that they are still, that they're able to make the gains that they need to, academically speaking. And so what that means directly for summer learning is we actually, as a state, we were able to procure statewide licenses for a number of high quality instructional materials, particularly for elementary. We're looking at Eureka Math and Amplify Reading. And so we have identified summer units with those organizations, and really the goal there is to support districts in using high quality instructional materials in the summertime. There are a couple outputs then that we hope to see from that approach. One, if we're talking the stressors of staff recruitment, hopefully this makes it a little bit easier for teachers to say, okay, I'm done with the school year, now I can go to the summer program. Here's all the things that I need right in front of me. I don't need to do all the lesson planning. I don't need to, spend the night before worried about what I'm going to teach the next day. I need to review what's going on in the materials, but that's all I need to do. And then I can go in and teach a high quality lesson. And then the second piece, I forget where I was going with the second piece. I think it was more on just the ability for districts to identify the resources that are available that are out there. And so that's really, the other kind of tangential approach is this allows districts to trial some of these materials over the course of summer, and then potentially use them in the following school year. So really creates a closer link from the summer to the school year as well. And so that's been one of our key approaches there as well.
We do have a few more minutes, Brian, and I wonder if I could put you on the spot a little bit. Definitely. And ask you, so do you have any advice for other states? Were there anything that was unanticipated that, you're like, we were just starting this and I wish I knew, and fill in the blank for us? Yeah,
I think we're learning right now, the more case studies that we can have around, especially at different district sizes, to point people towards examples of how it's done. So we run into a lot of issues, even with our additional funding source, we run into a lot of issues and concerns around budgeting. Not so much for these interim years when we have ESSER dollars, but we certainly expect it to pick back up once the fiscal cliff comes in 24. And we also run into, districts across the state, across the country are running into staffing issues. So really propping up examples and, identifying and then giving voice to examples that are working. My favorite small example is a district in the Dallas area that has done a great job recruiting teachers and some of their veteran teachers, in fact, in summer programming. And while still emphasizing the point that we've heard from everyone that it's summer learning, it's not summer school. There needs to be this just joy factor to summer. And one of the things that they've done is for every teacher that they're accepting as a summer learning teacher, they send a small bag of confetti to them to kind of signal this is a little bit different. This is, a summer program. This is our goal is to really engage students and make sure that they see it's different as well. That would be one of the things. And then I think just keeping a pulse on the stressors that your districts are facing. So, a little bit on the budgeting side, again, we have some minutia around program requirements for our state funding sources that took us by surprise, that they were as difficult as they were to implement. I think looking in hindsight, it makes a lot of sense. But that meant we had to divert some of our resources and really make sure that we're providing technical assistance and providing additional document resources and budgeting support to our districts going through this planning program. And so being nimble, being able to respond quickly is I think, something that every organization tries to do. And certainly being responsive has helped our districts implement a little bit better budgeting process, at least.
Thank you so much, Brian. I couldn't have asked for better answers. Across all our panelists have been fantastic. I believe that we're running a little bit early. I do want to make sure that we make time because I see that there are a number of questions in our Q&A box. So please continue to input your questions for our panelists, and we will shift to start answering some of these questions. I'll start with you, Brian, since you're on screen. The first one that I have, and folks can go ahead and come on screen as you like, if you can, and I'll just start posing the question. Do these programs, do you know if they provide free or reduced meals to students?
Many do, and there's through the Department of Agriculture, I think there's some specific summer meal opportunities. And our goal for our programs that we offer through Texas is everything needs to be at no cost for students. So through our planning program, at least. So I don't know if any others have better, more
No, absolutely. In Arizona, our 21st CCLC is a requirement for them to provide free and to provide snacks and meals during the summer. And so they cut partnership with our food and safety and health with our department, and like St. Mary's Food Bank, there's organizations that we support and connect them with.
Well, I'll just jump in and echo. I think that's a great point, Dawn. Thank you. And Brian and Melissa, thank you for everything you're doing and sharing. Sometimes there are other entities that have the meals that can provide them. It could be even churches. It could be, you know, like I was talking about the libraries and Parks and Rec. And so we have one example we talk about a lot is a group called Teachers in the Parks, which is through the Reading school system in Pennsylvania. But they have the teachers working on reading in the mornings, and then it takes place at a rec center facility, and then they come in with the lunches and everything else. So it's just interesting how people are kind of, you know, finding the partners. You're on mute, Polly. Yep.
I forgot to come off mute. Terrible moderator. Anyway, so Kathleen, did you want to chime in terms of just your work as deputy superintendent, former, or what you're hearing from the states and the state summer learning effort?
Sure. I think the states are making every effort to begin to, if they've done so, to integrate the work across community-based organizations. One of the suggestions I brought to states in our last month's webinar is a lot of states have children's cabinets, and it's an opportunity to look at state leaders in various organizations and connecting the dots between those organizations. And state children's cabinets are those kind of opportunities that the right folks are at the table to discuss a dilemma and find a solution collectively across multiple groups. And especially, I know several states have this as a governor's initiative, so a likely source of support.
Thank you so much. So we do have another question from Shelley Dunham McBride. What are your suggestions regarding how summer learning programs get staffed? There seems to be a shortage of trained, qualified tutors and teachers. What about calling back retired teachers? And we did hear an example about retired teachers. Do you have any examples about the pipeline issue around training and staffing?
And then I just wanted to add on to that, because we have another sort of similar question, that it's the teachers who are burnt out. And I know, Brian, you mentioned giving some confetti to welcome them. Other ideas you have to build on the question that Polly posed?
I'll just quickly, I know everyone's got examples, but I'll just share because we talk to so many programs all the time, and and a lot of people this is a big issue, not just in education, but across sectors. And everybody knows the Great Resignation, not only unique to education. People are tired. This was hard. People did a lot more with less and are exhausted and all this. But everyone in our field understands the needs and the moment and what it requires for young people. So I think we're seeing a lot of different examples, creative examples. I already harp on this one group. First of all, we have a lot of our award-winning groups. So you were talking about exemplars, but on this call, I saw Camp Edmo, Breakthrough Collaborative. These are nationally like acclaimed award-winning program models, and they all team up with their district. So you should, I think someone put it in the chat, like a list of our, almost 75 award-winning program models. And some of them are national, some are local, but all of them are replicable and scalable. So on the teaching staff question, I lift up the summer youth employment where that's possible as assistants and aides. If you can get older college age youth, high school students for their service learning hours could be a help and take on some responsibilities, especially for younger students. The last thing though on this, it's so funny and interesting. So this guy, and I always talk about him, Matthew Hathaway, who's running the program I just mentioned, the Teachers in the Parks. He has a waiting list of teachers who want to work in his program. So everyone comes to him. Why, Matthew? Everyone else can't find teachers. Why do you have so many teachers? And he says that he is a fourth grade teacher. He says, well, it turns out that if you tell teachers they don't have to work all day, they don't have to be in their classroom, and they don't have to be on Zoom, they're very happy to do it. And his model is they work for 3 hours every morning outside with a small group of kids in a circle that they want. And I visited the program a few times. I mean, the teachers are all crying. They're so happy. They're like, this is why I got into teaching to begin with. And so he, you know, and he breaks it up that way and everything else. So just, and then he makes a very obvious point that I'll just kind of paraphrase. He says, if you're running a program and you have a staffing model that no staff want to be in, you have to change. You have to recognize that it's a unsustainable strategy that you are promoting. And so we have to find new ways. And I love the idea of retired teachers and other experts who want to come in. And again, our community partners, if you're willing to bring them in under the tutelage of some master teachers and others, they really want to get involved and they want to be put to use.
Yeah, if I could add too, a little teaser for the April 19th meeting, which is our joint technical assistance webinar for all states. We'll be bringing in some conversations with City Year and AmeriCorps about utilizing their resources. And interestingly, in those conversations, there was actually a conversation about some states are now thinking about teacher pipelines and the creation of opportunities for teacher learning experiences within summer enrichment that would lead to licensure. And I do believe Arizona is working with that with Arizona State.
Kathleen, do you have a link to that? Is that open to everybody, that April 19th?
It is, and I'm looking, and I will pop it into the chat.
If I could add to it some of what we're doing as well, and I do think to Aaron's point, he gave a really great example, and I also shared earlier, I think we need to make sure there's spaces and places that teachers want to be, right? That allow them to also rejuvenate, remotivate, re-energize, and most importantly, then be willing to engage in the work that needs to be done with our kids. But we also work in partnership with some of our universities so that our students that are in teacher prep programs participate in work study programs in the summer. And some of those involve working with some of our most vulnerable students. One of the programs that we work with under my division is for our migrant program. They offer high school students an opportunity to be on campus with future teachers to work in areas of literacy, but also to really help them experience what college life could be and some of what's exciting about that. So it's kind of twofold, right? We're working on some of those areas that are really important to work on with those students, but we're also providing them an experience that maybe they have not had the opportunity to have, or that will engage them in a different way in school. We also invested some of our state ESSER dollars and awarded the YMCA and Boys and Girls Club some funding to have spaces and adults available before school, after school, during the summer for our students to go to. And they are working on different types of opportunities that could take place during that time. Some of those will be academically driven, and then others will be more sports. Those, again, experiences that kids want to have during the summer, which include lots of fun. So that's some of what we've done here as well.
I think the only other thing I would add there is really just underscoring the opportunity for partnerships. If you're at a, like, particularly for district-based programming, I think that model of like, we are hearing as well, like for their summer, teachers don't necessarily want to be working 6-hour days. Let's get them in there for the academic portion in the morning, and then we can partner with another organization in the afternoon. So I think that's an area that we're seeing districts try to explore as much as possible as well.
So can I just add, we do have a question from Amber Oxstein. So can you talk a little more specifically, like if you are a partner in the community that has stuff for summer stuff, you know what I mean? Like that has like, maybe already has a summer learning, what is the best way for them to access the funds that's available, knowing that the school district folks may not have time? Like, is there any other way that those partners in the community can understand how to access the funds to connect with your programs, you know, contribute to your programs, etc.?
We did a lot of marketing around or sharing out, communicating with the field through social media and other avenues so that they were aware of the opportunity to apply for funding, Emily. We also depended on our different program areas that already do have a lot of connections with our community-based organizations. But we really went all out to really help them understand that there were dollars available and what they needed to do in order to access those dollars, what they needed to, focus on in their proposals or plan for if they wanted to perhaps get access to any of those dollars. Dawn actually is on our review committee. I believe we received over 140 proposals. We were hoping to have already announced those awards in January, and now that's been pushed through the end of March. So we just did a lot of communicating, a lot of social media, we wanted everybody and anybody that had any connection to students and families in the educational community to really take advantage of the possibility of receiving funding to enhance their programs, to enrich their programs, and more importantly, to expand their programs, right? Because we know for sure it takes a village. There could not only be a handful of organizations or the LEAs that are going to be able to do this. We know that we need people to really think about what more they can do to help students during the summer, before and after school, beyond what they were already doing in their programs. So just like us, our community-based organizations had to really think outside of the box and have really been, from what I understand in what we've had come in regards to those proposals, have been really innovative, right? It's also an opportunity for them to do things that they knew would probably make their programs better, that would allow them to reach more students and more families. So they're excited to do it. And I think that really at the end of the day, some of those programs are going to have no problems in engaging teachers and finding adults that want to participate, because it's the way we want to do school. And so they're looking forward to doing school the way they've always wanted to, or perhaps have been able to before, but it's been a long time, right? So I think that we're going to see more successes than we are going to see challenges at the end of this summer, and really learn from those.
I mean, that is some really, having this webinar, I feel confident that there is a Melissa and a Dawn and a Brian in every state that's going to say the same thing. So that's so great to hear. Polly, you want me to just go ahead to the next question?
I think we can go ahead, but I also want to just put a plug in for statewide after school networks as well that are in this space. I would encourage folks to look for those state networks and get to know them, join their networks, subscribe to their newsletter so that you can look for opportunities such as these. I think that any way you can try to form coalitions. I know that there are sometimes city-based coalitions that can help to support these efforts as well. Thank you for, Emily, yes, please go in, please.
Yeah, thank you. This is actually a question for you, Polly, from Gwen Fischel, because she is asking if there's any studies underway to really understand what is happening now with summer learning in new ways, in response to COVID. And how are we codifying that? How are we understanding what's working well? So any new studies underway?
We do have a few studies that are underway. We are working with the Education Development Center. They are doing a national scan looking at states, which states are prioritizing summer, where are they going, like where have they prioritized it, how is it happening? So that is on deck to be published in the near future. We're also working with WSTAT, and they are looking at state plans. So as states are planning and submitting their plans, WSTAT is looking at those plans, looking for their strategies. What is their overall plan encompass? But they're also looking at where summer is showing up, where out of school time is showing up, how is partnership happening, and those kinds of things. We will try to publish as much of their findings as possible. That's interesting and new. I'm sure that there are work underway, but I do want to mention 2 other efforts that are underway. I'm unsure, and one of them will definitely have a research component, and one of them is the District Summer Learning Network effort. This is an effort that we are working with FHI 360 to host, and they're currently working with over 40 districts in this first cohort. It is a 2-year effort. That's why I said it's a first cohort. So over 40 districts in this first cohort. We are working with the folks at NYU Metro Center to do some research and data collection around that to see what can we learn from this. And I'll also say Brian is also working. The AIR team is working with Brian's team to capture lessons about how have they modified tools, the evidence base, what does fidelity look like for Texas, knowing that they have to make some adaptations to tools and the research to your context, right? So you are serving high needs, multi-language population. How do you adapt the tools to serve those students? I mean, that is a major consideration. So that's just for example. So I'm actually adding now. I mentioned the District Summer Learning, the Texas AIR, and another effort. It doesn't have a research component, but nationally there is a Summer Learning Enrichment Collaborative that is hosted through the National Center. And I know Kathleen and Aaron are part of that effort, but they are launching multiple learning communities where folks in the states, districts, community partners can attend those sessions. So I encourage you to look for the CC Network sessions. You may see Aaron and Kathleen speaking on those sessions. I encourage you to come to the boot camp that Aaron's team is hosting that's coming up soon. And you'll find like all of these different places. I mean, it's not just the Wallace website that has these programs and apps and tools and lessons. You know, Aaron has a great website. Kathleen has a great website that has a number of tools and resources. Of course, come to the Wallace Summer Learning Toolkit. But I also want to make sure that I give my partners a lot of support and props because they're the ones in the field doing fantastic work.
Thank you. So I know Sierra's going to post our poll. So if everybody could take 2 minutes while we're continuing our conversation to give us your feedback. We take this really seriously. So please take 2 minutes to complete that while we're continuing our conversation, because here's a question that I know Aaron can answer, and I think it's a really great question. Examples of public-private partnerships that are in support of summer, because I know NSLA has a lot of really interesting public-private partnerships.
Well, it depends. Thank you. I mean, but all of us could identify, I hope. And it depends, by the way, what you mean by private as well. You get into the term. So public, anyone working with a school district, that would be the public part. So then any other entity outside a government agency or nonprofit, to be considered in the private. So all these examples, and I keep going on, there's a group called Kids Read Now, has a lot of data on reading. I show you a big partner of yours that are Springboard Collaborative is another entity that a lot of districts are working with, where they bring the parents in to being aligned with the teachers and to work on literacy, especially at home. And then, I talk about the American Camp Association. So that's almost 3,000 to 5,000 accredited summer camps that are all doing summer learning in their way and maybe haven't been tapped by their local district. And they are in many cases in rural settings, by the way, and have all these resources, all this staff, and are not being put to use. First of all, 10 months of the year, typically, because the campus is vacant. But secondly, in the summer, at the end of the summer, as a bridge camp, before the camp starts, at the end of the summer, before school starts, we just, with some support from New York Life Foundation, are going to be seeding a whole bunch of school district summer camp partnership programs, kind of in the shape of a college freshman orientation, to right before the school year starts, where students and their teachers might go off site for a week or two and get ready and work on academics and work on community building. So there's a lot of examples. Fresh Air Fund in New York. I mean, Fiverr, I could go. A lot of our national award winners that were put in the list could be seen as good examples. Also a lot of corporate, and I think we saw that during COVID. Everybody turned into become a curriculum developer. The NBA was creating health and emotional health and wellness curriculum. You have your friends at Scholastic and Random House and all these kind of, Discovery Channel is producing endless corporate sponsored, hands-on experiential curriculum for people to tap into. And then you get to STEM and entrepreneurship and all these other things where companies can get involved. One example I like to share, lift up as well, is it turns out, and this can be worked at the younger ages as well, but that every medical school, well, not every, but a lot, and every hospital in America is running a summer learning program for low-income teenagers to teach them how to be doctors. I didn't know this until we gave out a national award to a group in Baltimore called Merit Health Scholars, and they are affiliated with Johns Hopkins Medical School. And I visited the program. I said, "Are there other programs like this?" And he said, "Yes, dozens and dozens." And I said, "Do you ever meet each other or know each other?" He said, "Never." And now NSLA is convening a whole learning community of just kind of these pre-med pipeline STEM programs. And so my point is, you might not have thought of your hospital as a potential partner for you in the summer to teach STEM, but the truth is they are, and they might be doing it right now and no one's ever called each other. So there's just so many examples. So I could stop there, but I want to add something about the innovation that Dawn was talking about and Brian were talking about, because that is something else. And I saw one of the questions was like, our people are so burned out, who's going to want to work in this anyway and all this. And what I'll tell you is like, there's a burning desire, innate desire in people to be helpful and be helpful in a crisis. And I think we could call COVID a crisis. And my point is, people want to be tapped. And we ran a summer innovation fellowship. We didn't have that much money to give out. And we did it specifically for educators of color who had a good idea that wanted to pilot a new summer program. And within 2 weeks, we had almost 500 applications. And we were just giving out mini grants of $25,000 and a coach. And I'm just telling you, that tells you that touches on DEI issues and everything else, but it also just shows like all your people have great ideas if you ask them, what do they want to do? What should summer look like? And it doesn't take that much money or that much help to get things going. And so I just think there's a lot of untapped potential out there to help us staff up the way we want.
Thank you. And I'm just going to say really quickly that for everybody, everything that you see posted in the chat will be sent to all registrants in a follow-up email. So you don't have to worry about tracking the chat, although you should be able to click on those 3 little dots in the chat and download the chat if you want to, but just please rest assured that you will get an email with all of the resources that are in the chat linked in that email. And then, so we've got just a few minutes left. I don't know if this can be answered quickly, but our state leaders, Brian, Melissa, and Dawn, this is a great question from Shelley. So how are you assessing, how are you tracking data? Her specific question, what is in place to monitor the quality of instruction, and what is set up to gather data on the effectiveness of the summer learning programs, in particular in those private partnership organizations? So I know that could be like a whole nother webinar, but if you can take like 2 minutes to respond to that.
Well, I went ahead and put for 21st CCLC Title 4B, our required reporting page into the link. And we do require summer learning for, as a part of our 21st century program and out of school time, which includes a site evaluation tool. We're tracking attendance, SMART objectives. We're ensuring that what was written into their original grant is being promised. We do site compliance visits. So those are just a few of the things that we're doing to ensure fidelity and to ensure that the funds are being allocated and spent the way that they were approved.
And then quickly as well, similarly, we also have a wealth of data from the 21st century. Where through our planning program, we have a lot of opportunities to track implementation and look at some of the student data that we request through that. And then long-term, we're looking more at longitudinal data through state assessments. We were just actually awarded a grant for looking at the additional day school year program in particular, which should hopefully give us some good data on even dosage components and things like that. But then also the study that Polly mentioned as well is more on the implementation side as opposed to necessarily outcomes, but just a wide net of different opportunities that we have.
And I'm just going to say that a lot of the questions coming in, quite frankly, can be answered by the National Summer Learning Toolkit and the National Summer Learning Project, which they're all linked there in the chat. Everything that's linkable from the Wallace Foundation's website. That's where you can get lots of examples. I will also again promote NSLA's Excellence in Summer Learning Awards. That's another place where you can get great examples of all of these different projects and all of these different things going on. So I just want to say, I know we've got 1 minute left, so I'm going to say a huge thank you. Polly, thank you so much for your excellent moderation, and for you and for Wallace for all of this support and being such a big champion for summer learning. Thank you to Erin and NSLA for your huge leadership in summer learning. And it's so cool to have this partnership with CCSSO. The Campaign for Grade Level Reading has done a lot of work with CCSSO, and it's so cool to see the two of you together and with NSLA. And then of course, our state leaders. Again, if every state has a Brian and a Dawn and a Melissa, we are going to be set this summer. So thank you, everybody. Thanks to everyone who participated today for all of your excellent questions. And I do encourage you to join us for future webinars. I will again post the link in the chat. We have some exciting ones coming up just next week with for funders only. So if you've got colleagues who are funders, to please join us at 12:30, and then to come join us again at 3 p.m. to focus on community schools and what's happening in California with their huge investment in community schools, and the other ones you can see on the screen. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for this wonderful conversation today. Take care, everyone.